Welcome to the Nameless. They erased her from the yearbook. I didn't notice it right away. I was flipping through my old high school yearbook at my parents' kitchen table, killing time while a storm rolled in, when something felt off. I paused on the junior class pages. There was a gap where a photo should have been. Not a blank square, but a space where the layout had been tightened, margins adjusted, a name missing from the alphabetical list. I knew that face was supposed to be there. I could picture it. But when I tried to say her name out loud, nothing came. I stared at that page longer than I should have. The longer I looked, the more it felt like I was the only one who remembered there had ever been someone else. I grew up in a town that most people passed through without stopping. One main road, a handful of stores, and a population that hovered just under 5,000. Everyone said it was a good place to raise a family. Quiet, safe. The kind of place where doors stayed unlocked and neighbors waved even if they didn't know your name. I moved away after college and only came back occasionally, usually for holidays. Nothing ever seemed to change. Same diner, same faces behind the counter, same conversations about weather and local sports. It felt frozen in time, which was comforting in a way. The girl from the yearbook was named Hannah. I was sure of that much. Hannah Miller. We sat next to each other in sophomore English. She had a nervous habit of tapping her pencil against her notebook. 3 quick taps, then a pause. She laughed quietly, like she didn't want to bother anyone. We weren't close friends, but we talked. I knew where she lived, or I thought I did. When I asked my mom about her, she didn't look up from the sink. "Hannah who?" she asked. "Hannah Miller, from school. She was in my grade." My mom frowned slightly, like she was trying to place a word on the tip of her tongue. Then she shook her head. "I don't remember anyone like that." That should have been the end of it. People forget names all the time. But over the next 2 days, I asked a few more people. Old classmates I ran into at the grocery store. A teacher I bumped into downtown. Every answer was the same. Polite confusion. A brief pause. Then nothing. I started to doubt myself. Maybe I'd mixed her up with someone from another town. Maybe she transferred early on. But the yearbook bothered me. I pulled out the other years. Freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. No Hannah. No empty spaces this time. It was like she'd never existed. That night, I had trouble sleeping. The storm from earlier had settled into a steady drizzle. I lay awake listening to the rain hit the roof, trying to remember details about her. The harder I tried, the fuzzier it got. I remembered her pencil tapping. I remembered her backpack had a frayed strap, but her face kept slipping away, like trying to recall a dream. The next morning, I drove past the old high school. The parking lot was empty, summer break in full swing. I sat there longer than I meant to, watching a flag flap lazily in the wind. That was when I noticed the sign out front. It listed achievements and upcoming events. Someone had taped a smaller notice over part of it. From a distance, it just looked like a repair. I got out of the car and walked closer. The paper was yellowed, edges curled. It listed a date from years ago and the words, "Community Renewal Night." I didn't remember anything like that. Below it were names, dozens of them. I scanned the list twice before I found it. H. Miller. My stomach tightened. The list was partially torn, like someone had tried to remove it but stopped halfway. I reached out to touch it, then hesitated, feeling ridiculous. A car passed on the road behind me. I folded the paper back into place and left. I started paying attention after that. Little things. Conversations that stopped when I entered a room. People using vague phrases instead of names. That family instead of saying who they meant. Houses that sat empty but looked maintained. Lawns mowed, mailboxes upright. no for sale signs. One afternoon, I walked past Hannah's old street. I recognized the curve of the road, the mailbox shaped like a fish. Her house was there, or what should have been her house, but it looked different, smaller, painted a different color. When I slowed down to look, an older man across the street watched me until I drove away. I found myself at the town library a few days later, digging through old newspapers on microfilm. I didn't even know what I was looking for, just proof that I wasn't imagining things. I scrolled through issues from our high school years, football games, bake sales, weather reports. There were no missing person notices, no obituaries, no sudden gaps. Then I found a short article buried on page 6. It talked about a community event meant to bring the town together during a difficult year. No details, just a list of volunteers and a photo of people standing in a circle, hands linked. The photo quality was bad, faces blurred, but one shape stood out. A girl with long hair, head slightly bowed. I leaned closer to the screen. My reflection stared back at me, layered over the image. That night, I dreamed of the school gym. The lights were off, but the floor gleamed like it always did after being polished. I heard pencil tapping echoing somewhere, slow and uneven. When I woke up, my heart was racing, and I couldn't remember why. The next day, I went back to the gym. The doors were locked, but a custodian was inside. I asked if I could look around, said I was feeling nostalgic. He shrugged and let me in. The gym smelled the same, dust and old varnish. I stood at the center of the floor, listening. Nothing, just my own breathing. I felt foolish standing there, chasing a memory. As I turned to leave, I noticed something carved into the bleachers. Initials, dates, the usual. But one carving was deeper than the rest, letters pressed hard into the wood. Remember to pretend. I stepped back, a chill crawling up my arms. The custodian was watching me from the doorway. His expression was neutral, almost bored. "You find what you were looking for?" he asked. I nodded, even though I hadn't. That evening, my mom asked if I wanted to attend the town's summer gathering. She said everyone would be there. It felt important, she added, like she was repeating something she'd been told. The gathering was held in the park near the river. Tables were set up, string lights hung from trees. People smiled and talked and ate. It looked normal, too normal. I noticed how often people glanced at the clock mounted on the pavilion. As the sun set, a woman stepped up onto the small stage.
She thanked everyone for coming and talked about community and continuity. Her words were gentle, rehearsed. Then she asked everyone to join hands. I hesitated, but the people around me were already reaching out. My mom squeezed my hand, smiling faintly. For a moment, nothing happened. We stood there in the dim light, crickets chirping. Then the woman asked us to close our eyes. I didn't. I watched as people's faces changed. Not dramatically, just a subtle slackening, like they were listening to something far away. The air felt heavy, thick with the smell of grass and something metallic I couldn't place. I thought of Hannah, her pencil tapping, her quiet laugh. I wondered if she'd stood in this same spot once, holding hands with people who would later forget her. The woman on stage began to speak again, softly. I couldn't hear the words. They seemed to slide off my ears. The crowd swayed slightly, in unison. I let go of my mom's hand and stepped back.
No one reacted. It was like I'd ceased to exist for a second. I left the park without anyone stopping me. That night, I packed my things. I didn't tell my parents I was leaving early. As I drove out of town, I passed the sign that welcomed visitors. Someone had scratched something into the metal beneath the town's name. I slowed down enough to read it. "We stay full by making room." I didn't look back. I've tried to explain what happened to friends. The words never come out right. It sounds paranoid, unprovable. Over time, details have faded. Hannah's face is gone now. I can't hear the tapping anymore. But sometimes, when I flip through that yearbook, I swear the pages feel thinner where her picture should have been, like something was carefully removed and the book stitched back together. And every once in a while, I catch myself struggling to remember someone I know is important, and I wonder how many people that town has made room for by pretending no one's missing.